I call this learning from my mistakes, kind of a bit of a retrospective on my experience on the Blackwell series. I'm going to be focusing this purely on Blackwell. I know I've published some other games like Gemini Rue, Resonance, and recently Primordia. I'm not going to be discussing those because I didn't actually design those myself, so it wouldn't be fair to talk about mistakes on those games when they weren't my mistakes. So, or, you know, I don't want to be like insulting anyone else's work or anything like that. So I'm purely focusing on my own screw-ups. And so I started Blackwell. The first game came out 6 years ago, but it was kind of, I guess the conception of it started a little earlier than that. But a bit about Blackwell in a nutshell for those of you who don't know. I know there's surprisingly not everyone here is an AGSer. So how many of you are AGSers, by the way? Wow, this room has a lot of them, so you probably know what Blackwell is. But for the few of you who aren't AGSers, it's a point-and-click adventure. Obviously, that's why most of us are here. Story-focused. It's kind of episodic. It's kind of, I like to think of it more as a series of a television show where each episode has its own story with some arcs that kind of get explained over time. Very low budget. I'm an indie guy. When I started this in 2006, I had about 6 months worth of money saved up, and at the time it was now or never. So I decided to start my own company, and my first real commercial game was Blackwell. So for those of you who don't know what Blackwell is, here's a little trailer, and I hope this works. Are you going to work? Here we go.
You received the ashes?
I scattered them this.
I imagine you must miss her.
She was the only family I had.
Hello, bright eyes.
I don't understand any of this.
Think of me as the Blackwell legacy, darling. First your grandmother got stuck with me, then your aunt, and now you.
You killed 2 people, almost killed a third. Doesn't that mean anything to you?
What's the worst that could happen?
You could die.
Oh, is that all?
I could have warned him. I could have helped him.
It happened too fast. There wasn't anything either of us could do. So, was it worth it? At the end of it all, can you look back and say, yeah, my life was worth living?
So that's Blackwell in a nutshell. And can I get past this one? Here we go. So the focus of this talk, I'm not going to focus on design so much. When I say sales, it's sort of sales focused, but it's more a case of how did the last game do, and how can I do better next time? When I first launched the first game, Blackwell Legacy, in 2006, I had almost no experience at all. And some of the technical stuff out of the way for those of you who aren't familiar with AGS or Blackwell. I used Adventure Game Studio to make this game, which is a third-party engine, scripting language kind of thing, and that's really all I need to know about the technical stuff. You don't need to know anything else. So I first conceived of Blackwell back in 2002. I had just been working on AGS games in my spare time for about 2 years, and I wanted to make a game about a ghost. I just did. So I picked up MS Paint, and I just used all my skill and all my talent, and I spent hours and hours and hours, and I made this guy. Awesome. So yeah, this is the Joey of 2002, and this is the Joey of 2006. In some cases, I prefer this guy, but what can you do? So Blackwell Legacy came out in 2006. I started the design, I guess, in August, and it came out in December. So it was a 4-month production period. And I had some challenges to overcome in order to get this game out. Number one, I was completely new. I had no idea how to make a commercial game, so I was just going to learn as I went along and hope I didn't screw anything up too badly. Also, I had a lot of trouble finding people to work with me. At the time, there were very few commercial indie games. Indie game scene was kind of very, very small back then, and very few people had done commercial AGS games. So getting anyone to take me seriously was very difficult, because there was this sense of, it's just this AGS game, it's not like it's anything important, and meanwhile my savings is running out, and I kind of needed to get this game done. So that was a challenge for me at the time. And I also kept myself to a tight deadline, because again, my money was running out, so I needed to get this game out and earning money as soon as I could. So here's the main result. Low res, low budget, and it looks it. I wanted the game to focus a lot on New York locations, real life locations. This is the dog park in Washington Square, Brooklyn Bridge, Washington Square Park itself. So launched it in 2006. It was only a week past my original launch date that I promised, so I felt bad about it, but a week probably isn't that much in the grand scheme of things. So launched December 23rd, and the reviews were generally positive. People seemed to like the game, which is good. But I made 4 big mistakes when I not only made this game, but finished this game. So here's a lesson in don't do what they did. Number 1, I underestimated the work that followed. I just wanted to make this game, and I basically launched it. Towards the end, I stopped sleeping, ate more crap than I cared to admit, drank lots of coffee, hit the launch button, uploaded it, posted a newsletter message, and went to bed. Which is not what you should do. And I thought that was it, my work is done, thank God. Do I earn money now? No, that's not how it works. And I really underestimated the work that followed, all the follow-up work, all the pushing stuff to the press. That's another talk we're doing later. Just maintaining it, answering all the emails, the technical support. There was just so much I was unprepared to do. And my original thought was, hey, this game took 4 months, the next game should take 4 months, and that did not happen. I did not plan ahead. Namely, I did not have another game idea or design waiting in the wings when I finished this game. So I couldn't start production on a new game because I didn't have one designed. So I had to sit down and design a new game while doing all this extra work that I hadn't planned on doing. All the, again, the technical support, follow-up work, pushing to the press, all of that stuff, trying to build the foundations of the business while trying to make the next game. And that did not go well. It was just, it took me, I hoped to get another game out in 4 months. It took 9 to get another game out. And those of you who played the second game know how small it is. It doesn't seem like it would have taken 9 months, but it did. It took 4 months to design a new game. I gave you a sneak preview of how the presentation goes. But something was wrong with the design that I made. I sat down like in cafes, designing this out, hashing it out. I had this nice big design document. I had some artists that I work with, and I put it in front of them, and they kind of gave me the skinny right away. The game is called the Blackwell Convergence. That's what I called it. And the big problem was it was way too big. There was no way we could produce this game in a decent amount of time. It was, at least by what we could handle back then, it was just way too big. So I looked through the design, and I had to make some cuts. And there were a number of flashback sections within the game, which I just sliced right off. They're gone. They're no longer in the game. But even still, we had problems. Is that money was beginning to run out. I had thought I'd have a new game out by now. It was now, I think, getting to be towards April, and the sales cycle of Blackwell Legacy was starting to wane. I had more free time now, great, but that also meant the reason why I had more free time was because fewer people were buying the games at this point, and so there were fewer problems, so fewer emails, which meant more time but less money. So now I had this big ambitious game, and I knew I wasn't going to have enough money to make this game and get it out in time, for me to just keep the business going, basically. So what to do? I had to basically bring in money the only way I knew how, and that was to make another game. What else could I do? I needed to keep it short, even shorter than the last one, which people said were pretty short, and just get it out there. Just get more products out there, get more money coming in. But what to make? Well, there was, fortunately, that little section I'd sliced off of Blackwell Convergence. Something that was already designed And I took a look at it, made some touches, kind of stitched it together a little bit better, called it good, and the result was Blackwell Unbound, which starred the main character's aunt in the 70s. So that game was an interesting experiment for me because it was cheap and quick. I wanted to get this out as soon as humanly possible. I had a grand budget of $800 that I could spend on this game. I hired a college kid who you might know of as Erin Robinson, who went on to work on Puzzlebots and now Gravity Ghost. And at the time she was in college, off for the summer, was a fan of my work. I totally took advantage of her, and she knows that, but she was willing to do this. Very, very small team, her and a composer, and that was it. Basically my goal here was just to get a game out, get money coming in, and basically stay in business. Very, very cutthroat. I wanted to stay in business. As you might have heard me say yesterday, this is how I save, this is how I earn my living, so I had to make certain concessions. The game is even lower budget than the last one, and it kind of shows. This is 53rd Street Lex, Jazz Shop, and Roosevelt Island. And this game, when it came out, launched on September 4th of 2007. The reviews were again positive. Some people complained about the lower graphic style, but people were a lot kinder to me back then, I think. I think when you first start and you're like a scrappy, tough little indie, they generally like you a little bit more. The sales were not too bad. They about a little less than the first one, but since I had spent so little money on it, it was all profit for the most part. So I was able to stay in business. Yay. And weirdly enough, this game, which I kind of got out really quickly for pure capitalist reasons, became a fan favorite. Everyone loved Lord Blackwell. Everyone says they love this game, which is funny because it's just, I got it out so quickly. It was very rough and rimshod, and but it became, everyone loves this one. So around this time, a new development started to happen. I had 2 games that came out, and I could start to pay attention to data, where I could see the people who came for the first one, and not only came, people who came back for the second one, and started to look at the data, try to draw some conclusions. And weirdly enough, the common trait among the people who came back tended to be older women in their 30s and 40s, mostly with children. A lot of people on my forum had names like Brian's mom and things like that. And I am speaking to people about that because I was really surprised by that. Speaking to some people about that, they said, well, you know what kind of audience that is? That's the Big Fish Games audience. They do casual games. And I didn't know about casual games at the time. I couldn't figure out if Blackwell was casual. I don't think that's a good look for her. But I think of casual games, I think of games like this. Bejeweled and Diner Dash and Peggle, and I don't know what game that is on the top right, but it looked casual. That's what I associate with. Does anyone know what game that is? No, okay. We're not casual gamers here, I guess. I did not think of Blackwell as being casual because that really wasn't my kind of game. So was Blackwell casual? I guess. I don't know. It couldn't hurt to try. I got in touch, someone got me in touch with Big Fish, and the games Blackwell Legacy went on Big Fish, and then later Blackwell Unbound of November of 2007. So I had been in business for about 2 years, and it was a real struggle to get sales out, real struggles to get press. I would get maybe like 20, 30 sales a month. It was a really hard slog at this point. So I went on Big Fish, and it hit the number 5 spot on Big Fish. And how many of you are familiar with Big Fish? Okay, a few of you. So you know what a big deal that is. Hitting number 5 on Big Fish was a big deal, and I was surprised. My first royalty check was $25,000. So 1 month on Big Fish, I'm giving sales figures now, I've never done this before, this is the first. For 2 years, I was struggling to make like half of this. And in 1 month on Big Fish, I could pay my mortgage for a year. So yeah, this was exciting. And so after 2 years, I thought, okay, I made it. I could call myself financially successful. I've cracked it. I'm done. I've made it. Thank friggin' God. So yay, success. I felt like a real game developer. I was earning money, and I was, like able to relax and breathe for the first time. It felt like, okay, I've done it. Awesome. I didn't have to do my PR anymore, because the biggest issue for me was getting these games out, pushing these games out. The sad fact was that the hardcore adventure gamers were not buying my games, it seemed, but the casual people were. All I had to do was put the games on Big Fish and the rest would take care of itself. At least that's how it seemed. I thought I had found my audience, like these casual gamers. They seemed to really like my games. Or so I thought. Anyway, so now I've got all this money coming in. Now it was time to go back and make the next one. So Blackwell Convergence was back on the table. So that came out, and more money meant better graphics. Who gets this reference? Who gets? All right, some Homestar Runner fans, awesome. So I invested in a big art studio to do the backgrounds for it, and it was probably the nicest looking Blackwell game so far. It was just absolutely beautiful. This is Central Park. This is the Washington Roosevelt Island Lighthouse, the Gothic Bridge at Central Park, and this isn't in New York, but, but it was all just so beautiful, and I was able to afford it at this point, well, barely. So anyway, that launched July 22nd, 2009. The traditional gaming sites really liked it. Adventure gamers, the sites that were more friendly towards adventure games, really liked it. Even some of the mainstream sites liked it. The sales, there were more of them, but since I had spent so much money on these graphics, I got pretty much the same amount of money coming in. So, you know, you gotta give and take. But what about the casual market? This casual market that had basically saved my butt a year and a half before. What about them? Well, Blackwell Convergence on Big Fish Games. The first month, hit the number 99 spot, which isn't so good. It dropped off very soon. My first royalty check was $5,000. Dropped very sharply after that. So it went from paying my mortgage for a year to basically paying my groceries for a couple of months. Maybe more than a couple of months, but it certainly was a big drop off from the last time. I live in New York, okay. Casual players were not impressed by the new and improved graphics. In fact, it was the exact opposite. Here are some of the comments from the Big Fish users. Wow, are those graphics really as bad as those screenshots depict? The graphics are terrible. Looks like it was written over 20 years ago. Horrible, I wouldn't take this game if it were free. And maybe I'm biased, but I mean this, 27,000, this, 5. So something was up here. Convergence was, for my intents and purposes, a much better game, better looking. I felt all the lessons that I learned about game design were put into effect. What the heck happened here? Well, I looked into it and I thought about it, and here is what the heck happened. The Big Fish audience was no longer my audience. When I launched Legacy and Unbound on their site, the cute, cartoony sprite graphics were pretty common in their games. Diner Dash and all the time management games, Mismanagement, all those games had graphics very similar to that. And also their price points dropped. When the economy shifted back in 2008, they had an idea of how to just keep their players. Before, they had this game club where you were a member of their game club and you paid less per game. It was like $6.99 per game versus $20. But you had to buy like 12 games a month. And that worked out really well for developers because, okay, people were paying less money for your games, but more people were buying games, so there was a greater chance that they'd be buying yours. So a lot of people were buying Blackwell, even at the lower price point. So a lot more money was coming in. But now they changed that. They removed that purchase minimum. So you could join their game club and buy, as long as you're a member of the game club, you could buy as many games as you wanted. So people would join the game club, buy one game for $6.99, and that was it. So basically, the prices dropped from $20 on Big Fish to $6.99 on Big Fish overnight. And also the economy, people were buying less games, they were spending less money. So they were buying less games and paying less for them, which meant that me on Big Fish was basically done. I was pretty much on my own. I thought like they would handle all my PR, all my marketing, all my sales. I was wrong. Things changed really fast. So there was only one thing I could do at that point: marketing. I had to actually do that stuff. I had not really done a lot of that at that point. I relied on word of mouth up to this point. I think this was 2009. So for about 3 years, mostly word of mouth and Big Fish to sell my stuff. So I finally sent out press releases. I learned how to do that. I subscribed to press release services. I got heavily involved with Facebook and Twitter at the time. If you look at my Facebook feed, for those of you who are on it, most of my posts really started happening in July of 2009, because I was really trying to do the whole social networking thing and just try to get more people interested in me, remain visible, that kind of thing. And I started having occasional sales. The first thing I did was I released the Shiva, my first game, for free during the Yom Kippur holiday, just to see what would happen. But in order to get the game, you had to go through my web store, which meant I got all their email addresses, which meant they're all on my mailing list now. So I now had over like 7,000 people on my mailing list. So that was a bit of a business thing that I did. I also started having just sales, like specific sales for specific websites. I would go to like Rock Paper Shotgun and say, okay, if you tell your users to use this code, they'll get a discount. Trying to just get more people coming. And I started implementing limited time offers like that. Did this work? Yes, it did. My sales soon exceeded the portals, and it wasn't just Big Fish. There was also, I think it was iWin. There were so many of them at one point. There was Oberon and some others, and my sales soon exceeded all of those, which a year beforehand I never thought I would have been able to do. But I never actually tried, but now I tried. And this helped me become more self-reliant. I knew I didn't have to rely on someone else to sell my games, which I think a lot of indies need. Most people rely on Steam and things now. It's very important to be self-reliant and to be able to have your own fans and your own website and be able to support yourself from that. So now that I was in a better position, it was time to move on. So Blackwell Deception was our next game. And I had learned many lessons at this point. So I spent less money and time on the graphics. A lot of folks complained about the graphics being not as nice. That's the reason. I had spent way too much money on the graphics in Blackwell Convergence. And I spent less money on them now. I mean, here they're a little plainer, but there are a lot more of them. Like these lights change colors, and it's this cool little dance floor. And this is, again, another New York scene. This is the High Line. So they're more functional this time around. There's not as much atmosphere. The sprites are simpler. The backgrounds are not as shaded and as detailed. It's a little bit more cartoony. But I didn't have a choice at this point. I really needed to just focus more on QA and user feedback. So tongue-tied today, I'm sorry. With my previous games, since I was spending so much money, I was trying to get them out the door as fast as possible. Because when you're losing money, that's a big red flag. You want to bring money in. But now I decided I was going to spend less money on the game and put more time into making it a better game instead of a better looking game. And that worked out really well. There were places in the game that I just completely scrapped and redid based on feedback. I think I redid the ending 3 times just to make it better. There are many things I did in that game, and I think on a personal level it's one of my favorites, simply because I really worked on making a good game instead of just making a product. And I also kept to a reasonable budget. The budget for Blackwell Convergence ballooned when I decided to increase the graphics. And for this game, I said, okay, this is my budget. It's low, it's reasonable, and I'm going to stick to it. Even after Gemini Rue came out and was a success, I still kept to that budget just because. I just did not want to deviate from it. I had a plan, and I was going to stick to it. And I also hired a PR consultant by this point. Dealing with the press and all that stuff was so much work and took so much time that I decided to hire someone to do that for me. Part of learning from your mistakes is realizing what you can't do or really suck at doing. And hiring someone to do that for me who could just take all that off my shoulders and just give me the time to focus on my work was a godsend. Her name is Emily Morganti. She used to work for Telltale. Anyone needs a PR person, let me know. She's awesome. So basically I focused on what I wanted the game to be. With Blackwell Convergence and to a lesser degree the other games, I thought I had a market and I was kind of tailoring it towards them, and I didn't care this time. I just wanted to make the game I wanted to make. And here are the stats. It launched October 13th, 2011. The reviews were very positive, and the sales were extremely good, beyond anything we ever had. Our biggest critical and financial success at that point. So I like to think all these lessons that I put into effect actually worked. So what were those lessons? Number one, graphics aren't everything. I think with pixel art especially, low-res pixel art, one thing I learned with convergence, no matter how good and beautiful they are, it's still low-res pixel art, and a lot of people just can't look past that. So blowing my budget on low-res graphics and making them gorgeous just was a big waste of my resources, especially for games like this. Instead, I was going to focus all that money and time into gameplay and atmosphere. I need to learn to budget both money and time. As I might have said yesterday, you can either spend money on a game or you can spend time. If you spend money, obviously you've got to earn that money back. If you spend time, that's extra time that the game isn't out and not earning money, which you will, of course, have to earn back. And if you're spending both, that's the problem. So you got to learn to budget both of them, decide where you want to spend your energy. You're indie, just try to focus your energy and strength the best you can. Plan ahead. Don't just finish a game and not have a plan afterward. I never finish a game now without having something in the wings, whether it's something I've designed or prepared or something I'm ready to publish or something. If you're going to do this full time, if this is your living, you can't have dead time where nothing is happening. So always plan ahead. And big thing, once you think you got it figured out, everything changes. A year from now, everything I say now is going to be completely different. You got to be flexible. You got to stay on your toes and just roll with it. That's all you can do. And make the games you want to make. It's no coincidence that the two games, two of the four Blackwell games, Blackwell Unbound, which was just kind of released off the cuff, not a lot of planning behind it, and Blackwell Deception, where I deliberately made the game I wanted to make, are like the two favorites of all the four. That's no coincidence. So whenever I try to focus on pleasing a certain audience or a certain market, the game never really sold as well. The critics didn't like it as much, the fans didn't like it as much, the sales were lower. So focus on what you want to make is pretty much all I can say there. But again, sometimes you have to compromise. You're not going to have the big epic you want to make. It's not going to be the perfect, wonderful game you have in your head. It never will be. So sometimes you got to compromise. It will not be as pretty. It might be a little rougher than you want, but you know it's still important to stay true to your vision. So any questions, I guess? Oh, actually, before we get to Q&A, since we got so much time, I thought I would try. We are working on a 5th Blackwell game, and we got the first couple of areas mapped out, and so I thought I'd show it to you. If I remember where the heck it is. Okay. It's called Blackwell Epiphany. It's a temporary title. I might keep it, I might not. There's no sound, so don't worry about that. Okay, bam.
Possible picture.
I might want to run it in Windows, but yes. Okay. Sorry. Okay, let's X out of here. Okay. Okay. So this time around, it's winter time, which I kind of wanted to focus on more atmosphere this time around. And did the rain thing in Blackwell Convergence, and Gemini Rue had the rain thing, so I thought I'd do snow this time around. And I'm not using the plugins. AGS has a few plugins for snow. And this is all done with a particle generator, which I just exported to individual frames, which is not the most memory efficient way of doing it. But I kind of like it because it lets me control where the snow goes a little better. There's another layer of snow in the back, which is coming behind the buildings, which I like. So basically here they need to get into this building. There's a bit of backstory which isn't programmed into the game yet. I'm not sure if this is ready for prime time. But in order to get in, of course, you can switch between Rose and Joey here, and you can talk to them like you can.
Let's have a little talk.
I forgot I left that in there. That's just VO from the previous game. Sorry. So she can't get in because it's locked, as these things normally go. I'm also using the talking portraits from Convergence, just as a temporary thing. So he can go in there. This is the inside. Whoops. So here there's a little notice on the desk which gives you a clue to a puzzle, which hasn't been entirely implemented yet. As I said, this is very rough. So one thing I wanted to do, especially with this one, a lot of people always say that Blackwell shows New York a lot. Ooh, there's a ghost. And which I always find very funny. They say, yeah, so many beautiful shots of New York, when most of Blackwell takes place inside offices and apartments and shops and things like that. So I wanted to kind of show off New York, but still have internal shots, which is why this first scene takes place in this kind of burnt out husk of a building that's kind of been partly demolished and then kind of became haunted and no one wanted to come back anymore. So this gives you a clue to solve the puzzle. So in order to get Rosa in, here she is on the outside. Whoops. I'm just going to skip all this because it doesn't make any sense right now. So she's got a cup of coffee in her inventory, which is my lovely placeholder art. And the clue mentioned the word rebuke, and she tries to, yeah, it was revolt. Sorry, I can't read my own game. And it's covered with ice, so you use the hot coffee. She's working for the police now, which is why she's talking about expense reports. Remove that, take the key. And now she can get in. This area is all that's in the game right now. There's not much in there now. One side effect of publishing other games like I have this year is that I haven't had time to work on this as much as I would like. But I'm very proud of this animation because I used a particle generator to make it. Okay. So this is really all. This is it. So, I just wanted to show that to you since I have extra time. So now, wait. Okay. Any questions? Any questions? Yes, in fact.
Well, you said you tried to keep the game within a reasonable budget. Mm-hmm. What is a reasonable budget?
It varies. I tried to keep it under $10,000 because I spent a lot more than that on the previous game. And I thought that was reasonable as a way to kind of, and I'm thinking of like my own personal time as well. It's just, that was what I thought of as reasonable, like the voice acting, the marketing, and everything together. I wanted to keep it under 10 grand, just so I wouldn't break the bank getting the game done. Because at the time, I was, I didn't have a lot of money coming in. So I thought, okay, this is what I could afford to lose. And whenever I spend money on a project, I always think of every dollar spent as a potential dollar lost. And you gotta always think that way, like, can I afford to lose this? And I figured 10 grand was just about as high as I was willing to go. So that's what I kept under.
How long did that take for the 10 grand? Sorry.
Well, the thing about Blackwell Deception was that I kind of got interrupted by Gemini Rue in the middle of it. So I started working on the game in July of 2010, and then I got involved with Gemini Rue, I think in September, and that took me till February. So I didn't work on Blackwell as much. And then from February, I worked on it from February until I think October. So I can't do the math in my head, but that's something like that. Yeah. Anyone else? Yes.
How and why did you get into publishing as well as developing games?
Well, I spoke about that yesterday. That was a whole long talk, but really, really quick. I just wanted to get more games out. I just felt like getting 1 or 2 games out a year just wasn't going to work. Because if one of them flopped, I was done, basically. So I wanted to get more games out, so I started publishing. Anyone else?
You said by the fourth Blackwell you were doing a great process of getting feedback and working changes based on that. What was the process you went through for soliciting that?
Pretty much I have a beta forum, and I sent builds all the time, like right from the very beginning. Like everything was all like placeholder art, sketches, things done in MS Paint. I'm like, all right, if you can, I knew there were some of them that could look past that and just sort of see it for what it was. I'm like, does the story make sense? Do you know what's going on? Like, do you get this character's motives? I know it's all sketchy and they're stick figures and half the characters are Roger. AGS doesn't know who that is. But like, do you still get it? Does it make sense? And sometimes they'd say yes, sometimes they'd say no. And I take all that on board and just sort of scrap things and redo things and jigger things around. And the ending especially I had a lot of trouble with. And in the end I just sort of, well, I've got this forum that'll give me feedback. So I just sort of wrote an ending that I knew didn't work. And I just said, okay guys, here, I know the ending doesn't work. Tell me why you think it doesn't work. And maybe in the course of that, I can figure out an ending that does. And that is what happened. So just showing it to as many people as I could, basically. And yes.
You said that it's really important to be self-sufficient, especially as an indie, especially because things change all the time. And you're very dependent on big fish at the beginning. But a lot of indie people now say that Steam provides an immense amount of their sales, despite what they do. Because I know that you can get like things like Resonance and Jim Iru also through GOG.com, probably a few other venturegames.com, I suppose, and all those kind of places. But how much of the land, how much are people reliant on Steam, do you think, for this kind of game?
I think that this is definitely true. I mean, Steam is, at this point, when we got our games on Steam, when Gemini and Blackwell first got on Steam, it was like launching them all over again. It was more people were playing our games in the day it launched than they had in like the 5 years we've been in business. So it was a huge deal to be on Steam. Goes without saying. But at the same time, like having that skill of being able to be self-sufficient and sell off your website is extremely important as well, because you never know what's going to happen. I could never think, okay, I'll just give it to Steam. Because half the time, also they always reject our games when we send it to them, only to later change their mind. I don't know how familiar you guys are with all that green light drama that I had to go through. But after 7 games on Steam, and most of them doing reasonably well, I submitted our last game, they rejected it, told me to go to green light. It like leapt up to like number 40 in 2 weeks, and then they took it in the end. Like they rejected it, later changed their mind with every other game. But throughout all that, I kept thinking, okay, if they're not taking me on Steam, I really have to push my website. And but fortunately, I already had that skill, having gone through this with Big Fish already. So it's just, that's basically it. Yeah, you never know. Something could happen to Valve. They might be less indie-friendly than they are now. You don't know what's going to happen. And if you rely on them completely, I think you're going to run into trouble down the line.
The other thing I was going to ask is, what about, on the back of that, what about bundles? Because the Blackwell trilogy was in the indie bundle thing. So these are two of the big conversations about when it comes to business and money flow. These are two of the big things in indie development. You know, getting something on Steam or iOS, obviously, and bundles and sort of debate around bundles.
Well, bundles, I think they're great. We've done really well with the bundles we have. We also have the long tail. So we have an old game like the Shiva was on a bundle, and it's still earning money now, which is awesome. But the danger, I think for us it works out great, because these games are old. Then yeah, here we can put them in the spotlight again, which is awesome. The danger with bundles comes from when you launch a game and then a month later it goes on a bundle, which I think it might earn you some money in the short term, but in the long term it just completely devalues it. Because why should people care if you launch it and then suddenly sell it for 50 cents on a bundle? I know Steam asked us to put Primordia on some bundles for the holiday, and I told them no. Because, yeah, okay, it might earn us some money now, but I think it'll earn us more money if we wait like 6 months, and all the people who didn't want to buy it and were waiting for it will be really eager for it by then. But if we give it to them now after it only being out for 2 weeks or so, I mean, that's just not fair. The people who bought it at full price, and it just completely devalues it. Like, I like to think these games have some value. When I first launched the Blackwell Legacy, I charged $14.99, and a lot of people didn't like that, thought it was too much. And maybe in retrospect, it might have been a little high. But I stuck to my guns about it. I think this is what I need to sell it at to stay in business and earn a living. And you got to remember that. You can't devalue what you sell. It's got to have some worth. Yes.
Dave, do you plan to ask any external developer to put your games on different platforms, like iOS, Android, or whatever?
Well, yeah, right now we're putting, my wife, who's one of those real programmer people who went to school for it and everything, not like me, just tinkers with AGS. She is right now testing the iOS build of Gemini Roo. She's been working on that for 6 months and it's almost done. So assuming that goes well, we're going to port everything else. It's slow because it's one game at a time and every game is different, and there's so many different ways to like make things touchscreen friendly, and so it's a bit of a slow process. So yeah, we are going to do that. We have people have offered to do it for us before. It's just that AGS is not the most portable friendly of engines, so they underestimated the work involved, and it never worked out before. But since we're doing it ourselves, you can take as long as we want. Yes.
Well, it's related to this question. Are you willing or planning to develop or publish some games which are not in AGS?
Yeah, if they're good. Yeah. It doesn't have to be an AGS by any means. I'm very familiar with AGS, so when I get tech support, I can answer a lot of the questions related to the engine. So if you're making a game in Windstream, I probably won't be able to do as much tech support for you, but yeah, I'll
have you done it before? Have you published games that are not?
I haven't before, no. I haven't before, not yet. Anyone else?
How do you deal with sort of time scale and estimates? Because on our project, we had a big problem with, we'd say, okay, we're going to get this done over the next 2 weeks, but then something would come up and it would end up taking, say, 3 weeks, and then that pushes everything else back. Is that just sort of to do with how much you plan it, or?
Well, here's a question: are you all full timers, or is this a hobby for you?
We've been working fairly full time.
Okay. I don't know. Things happen. Is all I can say. I mean, sometimes it's. I'm pretty draconian when it comes to stuff. Like I will stay up all night and get things done. My wife is the same way, and when I'm publishing someone else's game, and I really push deadlines. But I don't give them just 2 weeks. Like it's got to be, give them time and see how they're progressing. That way, like if you give someone 2 weeks and when they're weak, it's not getting done, it's really hard to catch up. But if you give someone a month and when you don't see a lot of progress in a week, you still have time to like fine tune it and say, okay, here's what we need to do to hit this deadline. And if the deadline itself is if the time frame is very short, you don't have a lot of leeway. So my suggestion would be give yourselves more time.
Following that point, I was going to say, when I'm held up with when I've got deadlines, I usually give myself buffer time, a couple of buffer days for every couple of weeks. And best casing it, I've met the schedule, the buffer days can be used for cleaning up. Worst case, it's more time for finishing up things we've been unable to do.
Yeah, I know. I usually try to I know a lot about developers like, all right, yeah, we get the last bit of voice acting in and then we can launch. For me, it's like I get the last bit of voice acting in and now I can test for another 2 months. So it's depends on how you do things. I like to have everything completely solid and done and then test for like another 2 months just to get everything out there. But of course, things get delayed, things happen. I don't usually announce a launch date until I'm absolutely positive I can hit the date. And sometimes it's close, but most of the time I do hit it. Anybody else?
What do you think about the future of like this particular medium of video games now? The point and click adventure we've now had. We've got like Raids that's in development, double fine. We've got Machinarium did very well. We've got the Cave that's about to come out soon. Where it's not point and click, but it's not too far from. Do you think there's going to be a genuine long-term revival? This is what a lot of people talk about, revival of venture games, because some people talk about it from a fairly smeary attitude, saying, oh, they're like dead and lame, it's just 1 or 2 flashes in the pan, but like, since you're actually the cold face of it and doing it.
On the what face?
On the kind of active.
But you said cold face.
That's what he said.
I see.
Yeah,
oh, so you did say cold face.
Yeah,
Okay.
I did say cold face, but I thought maybe it was a bit, sorry, contextual.
Right.
But yes, sorry, a bit cultural.
Sorry,
yeah, so you're actually in it and doing it rather than just some journalist who's like, does lots of different games. So do you see or feel like a groundswell of like this, because you've also published now as well, Resonance and Gemini Root, you're probably in an even better position because you have to publish not just your own games but other games.
Well,
so,
I noticed that with half the reviews that come out, I think a lot of journalists, it's in their contract to have some treatise on how adventure games are dead or dying. In every single, 70% of the reviews, they say something about that. But I think in the last year or two, especially this year, I mean, the market, the world, gamers in general, it's never been more indie friendly. And a lot of old genres are coming back. When you get shmups, am I saying that right? Yeah. Shoot 'em ups. You get those, all these old platformers. I mean, you're getting roguelikes for crying out loud. I mean, there's so many old genres that are just coming back and are doing really well. And point-and-click adventures are just kind of riding that wave as well. Like, people still love them. I mean, those the Double Fine campaign and everything, all those are just proof of that. That, okay, you might not be able to get these games made through a publisher, except someone like me, or through a mainstream publisher. But yeah, there are enough people out there who put their money where their mouth is and go on a Kickstarter or buy the games or what have you. So Yeah, I mean, I think things are awesome right now. Like, we've never done so well. I do hope it continues. If it doesn't, we'll have to deal with it. But for right now, we're definitely riding that wave as far as we can.
Do you think you'll make it to the consoles? Or is this is
I
purely
don't think,
PC,
I
not
think we're
PC
going
focused?
to be aiming towards mobile is where we're going to go, because having to go through like Nintendo or Microsoft certification just sounds like an absolute nightmare. I don't think we'll be going in that direction just because it's more hassle than we're quite willing to deal with. But Apple certification I hear is a bit of a pain, but it's more of a case of like fulfilling their guidelines rather than wanting to change content. So we'll see how that goes when we finish the port and get it up there. We're hoping that will be like the next thing to do, because that seems to be where everything is going. Touch screens and mobile, you know, love it or loathe it, that's where things are going. So it makes sense to go in that direction as well.
When you were first starting out, before you were able to dedicate a lot of your budget to QA, how did you go about getting reliable testers to work on the project that didn't just kind of go, oh yeah, I'm definitely up for that, and then a month passes and I haven't actually played it?
I get a lot of those. I mean, what I generally do is that I have a, even back then, I had done a lot of freeware games. So I had some testers that I worked with, usually from the AGS forum, who were quite willing to test these games. And they were also much shorter back then, which helped. But typically what would happen, I know there are people who just want to play it. And so they'll download the beta and they'll give some comments. And they're a lot more casual. And then you get the really hardcore people who will find every little thing. Like, yeah, the character moves a pixel to the left when you do this and it looks weird. But, you know, there's some major story element that they just won't even comment on. So I don't mind it when someone plays it once or twice and never comes back, because they're a casual player. And that's fine, because usually the casual players will pick up the most obvious stuff. Like they're trying to get past a puzzle in a really obvious way, and I didn't account for that. And usually it's the more casual players who will find that stuff, while the really hardcore testers will like find every single typo and misplaced comma, and like every time a graphic glitches in a slightly weird way, or you know, all the little folks who can't see the forest for the trees, basically. So it's good to have a mix of both. And back when, it's not so much that I didn't have the money for QA, it's that I was more concerned about getting this game out. So it's like, I would test it, and then like try to get it out as soon as possible. But now I get more builds out and try to get more feedback, get more testers. I think I've got about like 50, 60 rotating testers on their forum now. And it's getting to the point where I might have to get some kind of bug tracking software. I don't know anything about that. But, oh, we're still good. Yeah.
As a Wadjet Eye publisher, so do you plan to focus only on point-and-click adventure games, or you're open for some different type of adventure games, or you might consider even different genres?
Well, I love Western-style CRPGs like Baldur's Gate and stuff like that, and Planescape. And for a while, we thought of making one, and my wife was quite a ways on making an engine that could do that for us, because there's nothing out there. There's no like AGS for Western-style like isometric RPGs. There's like RPG Maker, but we're not a fan of the Japanese style. But there's nothing out there, and we thought we'd make one. Didn't work out. Instead, she worked on Resonance, which was probably a better use of her time. So that's something we'd love to do. They require a lot more money and time and detail-oriented design than we probably want to do. But that's something we definitely want to do. That's something like we don't know. Gary.
Do you have any plans for anything non-Blackwell related for a personal project on this side?
Definitely. I think after this next game is done, I plan on doing 2 more, and that's it. Because I don't want people to wait forever to get to the end of it. I think I'm taking a lot longer with him than I originally thought. Like I said at the beginning, I thought, yeah, a new one every 4 months. That didn't happen. And it's getting to the point where I had these characters in my head for so long, like I'm worried about getting sick of them. And I don't want to keep you guys waiting. So either after this next one is done, I might either get the next one out right after that, or work on something else. Like I have an urban fantasy idea that I've been meaning to try, kind of Dresden Files kind of feel. I've been wanting to do that for a while, and I might do that after this. Originally I was going to do that before Epiphany, but then the Blackwell games got on Royale and got on Steam, and suddenly got this huge burst of popularity, and it seemed I should kind of take advantage of that. But then I got involved with the publishing, and it didn't come out as soon as I would have liked.
On another thing as well,
have you ever thought about outsourcing one of your ideas to someone else? Because obviously you have the people who make their own games and you publish them. Have you ever thought of going to any of them with your ideas and saying, would you be interested in making it to kind of like...
I've thought of it. I've thought of it. I still would probably, it would probably still take just as much time because I'd want to be on top of it as much as possible because I'm kind of controlling it that way. I don't know. I haven't thought of that. But, or rather, I have thought of it but haven't really tried it. But maybe. Yes.
To what degree are you aware of piracy having affected your sales? And
There's
what's-
piracy? People are pirating my games? Holy crap! No. I'm well aware. And there's nothing. I'm sorry, is that.
I was just going to say, and what steps have you taken, if any, to try and combat that?
If big AAA companies with millions of dollars to spend can't do anything about it, what can I do? So I just sort of, I'm sorry, Barry, and are we interrupting your conversation? I've been up here for an hour. Yeah, I'm well aware, but there's really not much I can do about it. I don't think it has an effect on my bottom line. Basically, I think the more effort we put into a game, the better it does. So it's not like the piracy, I think, is hurting us because we've never been.
Getting a weird noise.
Things are still very strong, and they're constantly getting better. So I know the piracy is there, but I don't think it's hurting us at all.
I don't think your audience will be the type of people to pirate games
Oh, they
as
do.
much as. I don't think that. I'm sure they do, but I would have thought that probably a lot of the type of people who are fans of your games are less likely to pirate in as many biggest numbers as say AAA games. Right, so people.
Well, it's proportional because not as many people buy my games as they would AAA games. So it's either way. I know it's there, but it hasn't affected me at all. I mean, I was able to afford to come here, so it's. Anybody else? We've got some time left. Yes.
You pretty much answered half of my question I wanted to ask you. Do you plan to carry on the Blackwell series? Do you want to end it at one point? But then I thought, when you answered that you plan to make 2 other games, do you plan to make any prequels to Blackwell series? For example, where we play as main character with our ghostly friend when he is alive? Or anything like that?
Probably not. I think.
Fair enough. Just.
I think when it's done, it's going to be done. The funny thing about Joey is that a lot of his kind of what's the word? Kind of the thing that attracts people to Joey is that he's got this mysterious past, and how much do I want to actually reveal without suddenly make him not interesting anymore? I think there's only so long I can string that along, but actually, there's this funny thing where I knew this webcomic artist where if there was something his fans really wanted, he was kind of didn't want to do it in that way. And people said they want to play Joey when he was alive, and they want Joey to possess Rosa at some point. I'm not going to do either of them, so sorry. Yes. Okay.
And maybe, have you thought of something different, like Joey being a Batman, and you're playing as a Robin? No, as mentioned, no.
Sorry.
No, I was trying to rephrase my question. No, that you play as someone in the days when Joey is alive, who is inspired with the Joey character, but he is still.
Probably. I decided I'm not doing that.
No, just ask me if you don't want Joey as the main character.
I mean, if I have a game set in like the 30s, I might have a reference to him, but it'll just be like a cameo or something. It wouldn't be
a little cameo.
Yeah. It'll be someone in the back had their hand up. Yes.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you could tell us what your sense is of what's going to happen to the communities. I mean, things like AGS, as we move from a labor of love, AGS, mutual support model, to something more like Valve or GOG, where it's primarily commercial. Do you think
you think it's primarily commercial?
Well, do you see these as being really complementary to one another, or do you think things are going to move maybe away from that?
Well, I think it's kind of as people use the engine, it's like the community is so vibrant and so rich, and there are people like who do make these games a big part of their life. It's a very natural progression. So I see nothing wrong with that personally. I think they feed off of each other. I think if you're making a freeware game, yeah, like what's wrong with wanting to sell them one day? So I think, and it's the most helpful community I've ever encountered, and I think it's just sort of I think it'll still keep. It'll still keep feeding each other. Like like I still come to the forums, a lot of people still come to the forums, and they'll still help new people, and then they'll push them to do commercial work if they want to. I think one thing that does have to happen is that I'm hoping there will be a new official version of the engine at some point. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but it needs to be updated badly. But other than that, I can't see it. Any more questions?
Are there really any other alternatives to AGS? Do you use AGS just because it's the best thing for what it is, or do you use AGS because, well, I've done several years of AGS now, so it's going to take a lot from it. I mean, are there other engines like Visionaire or Wintermute? Have you used any of those?
I thought about it. The problem is that the biggest problem AGS has is a lack of portability, and that's starting to change. There's just some technical stuff that I just can't fix because it's an AGS problem, and I don't know enough about the engine to fix it. So when people approach me with these technical problems, like they can't run them on dual monitors, it just glitches out and things like that. Depending on their kind of PC, just things I just can't help them with, and say, oh, I'm sorry, it's an AGS thing, and kind of pass the buck and tell them to go onto the AGS tech forum and see if someone there can help them. I feel awful that I can't help them. Just because I don't know their specs and how the engine works with it, that kind of thing. So I thought about using Unity, but like I said, I'm not like a real programmer. I just know AGS, so whenever I try using something else, I just get very overwhelmed and I just return to AGS like an old friend.
You have to make that interface yourself, right? And you have to make that interface that's already taken for granted in AGS.
It takes a lot of the grunt work out, so it's awesome. I love it. If some of these, I mean, every engine's going to have issues, no matter what. The portability is a big problem, especially as just making a game for the PC, no one does that now. Like that, if you release a game, you expect it to be on Mac and Linux and everything else. And not being able to do that sort of gives me some weird looks at conventions. But yeah, hopefully one day, like we're porting to iOS, but it's like one platform at a time, one game at a time. It would be lovely to have something like Unity where you can make the game, hit one button, here's PC, here's Mac, here's Linux, here's iOS, here's Android. But making an adventure game AGS-like framework within Unity is a challenge I'm not equipped to do. So one day, maybe. Anybody else? Yes.
Yeah, in relation to QA, do you have a proper NDA procedure in place? And are you conscious about people potentially giving away your kind of ideas and concepts before?
I'm not very big on that. I'm pretty loose. When I worked with Play First, they wanted everyone to sign an NDA, which was fine. It's too much of a hassle. With 60 people on my bid testing roster, with a new game, it's just if someone didn't sign that NDA, I would have no way of knowing. There's just so many of them, so I don't.
In addition, often you find the most constructive and best QA testers have very strong views and opinions on how the game should and shouldn't be changed. And it's often you want to keep them in the loop because you do want their feedback, but you kind of got to massage their ego slightly and make them feel like it's valued without basically compromising your own creative ideology and views.
I had one tester who
how do you deal with that?
Well, I had one tester who was obsessed with finding every instance of, if I said that it's a microphone, and the VO said it is a microphone, and he would find every instance of that and report it. And especially when we're getting towards the wire, usually what I say is I take all the reports and I put them together and I try to get them all. But when we're getting to the wire, there's only so much you can fix and there's only so much you can do. And they say it's not that we don't think your fix is important or we don't value you, it's just that the more bugs we fix, the more bugs we cause. So we have to be very careful about which bugs we fix. If it's not a serious or critical bug, we're probably not going to fix it at this point. But if someone is really kind of pushing for the game to be designed in a certain way, we just have to explain why we can't do that. I mean, there's really no, if someone wants to change the principal core foundation of the game, obviously we can't. So we just explain to them that this is our way of doing things. I've never had that situation actually, but I imagine I just have to be nice about it, I guess.
Yeah, because I've had QA testing before where people have been quite strong with their opinions and they think maybe the gameplay mechanics should head in a different direction. and it basically doesn't really fit what you want the game to go in. And you value their opinions and their criticism and their input. At the same time, you don't want to get into sort of a slagging match almost, saying like, it's my game, I'll do what I want. At the same time, you're the QA tester.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
really
the same
fun
thing when
balance.
you read forum posts or comments on articles and things like that. You gotta get a thick skin and kind of maintain your distance from that. Because
Is it something you've come across though through?
not with beta tests.
Because I suspect you've probably got quite a small number of beta testers, but I don't know. Maybe with say you had a bigger game, it might become a bit bigger.
I've never really gone. No, I've never encountered that myself. I think we have time for. I know it's after 5 o'clock. I think we're done. So thank you, everyone.